There's power in a drum beat on a hill above the sea. Power in the voice of a supporter. But it all amounts to nothing. Together we don't sing. There's power when we're North Boise. ST loyal forever. Someday North County. Desert to islands. Get loud now, you and me. All our voices strong together as we cheer on our team. There is power when we're North Boise.
So we are at the courtyard right now on Market Street, downtown San Diego. We are at the unveiling event for this USL club where they're gonna show everyone their crest and colors and some of their branding. And the newly anointed locals are going to drop a banner back there that you can see in the background that will reveal the crest. So there's gonna be some presentations. Nate Abaré is here. He's going to MC the event. Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Today is kind of the culmination of what's been about 6 months, it feels like, since about March, from then through now in terms of an announcement to where we're at. So it's really exciting to see where this has come to. I'm really just kind of mostly anxious to see how people react and who shows up and how they like it. We're going to hopefully get some more signups today. That's kind of our goal. But overall, we're just here to have fun and hopefully have a blast. So hopefully a good Saturday morning.
Everybody else over there literally becoming a local right now.
So the name and color reveal, the crest reveal, it had been several weeks in the making. That was kind of a precursor to so much of what represented the club and its relationship to supporters.
But again, it was it follows an excellent pattern that the club has apparently embraced. They bring us together and they offer us beer.
We wanted to do a big tifo. We wanted to do flags. We wanted to make some merch and show up in big numbers. And he came back with, well, we want to include you guys a little bit more than that. How about you make something big enough to cover the crest, and then your tifo will drop and will reveal the crest to the world, essentially, at that point. I put something together really quick. We threw around some ideas. We wanted to be super simple, and we wanted to say, this is San Diego, and represent us. And that's how we came up with the Here to Play, Here to Stay tifo, which technically is the first one we ever really did together as a group.
My name is Nate Abaré. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you. And hello to everybody tuning in at home to our live stream.
Trying to get some sort of an idea of color scheme or anything that we could use as the locals to make our presence felt that day was really difficult. It got to the point where we're like, okay, we only have this weekend to make flags, so either you give us some colors or we're just not gonna make any flags, and it may not look like you have a supporters group. Kind of we use that to our advantage, and he said, it's actually Ricardo said, okay, fine. And he sent me 2 color swatches, and he said, this is all I'm gonna give you. I said, okay. So we made flags based off of those color swatches, whatever we could find in a store. We couldn't order fabric, we didn't have time for that. We had to go in and find something that matched slightly. We're like, well, it's not gonna be exact.
Jerry's wife, Nydia, made flags, so they were able to wave some flags and sing some songs to kind of establish who we were. We had made t-shirts. Jerry made the design, and then the font design. Daryl printed them, and they all, Daryl, Jerry, and Drew got to wear them. They got to go on stage and help present the crest and colors. And
there's a section in the stadium that sets the tone and the atmosphere for the whole game experience, for that 90 minutes plus. But everything that they do goes way beyond those 90 minutes, and they can express a lot more, and I think a lot of you will identify what their cause is. As we went through this process to get here today, they were a source of motivation and energy for us as we went through, honestly, a roller coaster of ups and downs to get to this moment.
Amen.
And they went through a process recently, and now they're officially called the Locals Supporter Group. And there we go. The 3 guys I'm going to bring out are Drew Stack, Jerry Jimenez, and Daryl Briggs. And Steve Brokoff couldn't be here, but I think he's watching on Facebook. So, guys, coming out.
I was actually in Palm Springs for a wedding. I was actually trying to like finagle, like the wedding's at like 3 p.m. Maybe I can go. The event was kind of in the morning. Maybe what if I leave by like noon and then I'm there by like 2 and I'm ready but ultimately, I was like, if there's traffic or if something happens and I miss the wedding, like I would never forgive myself.
We'll see you in the East End. Thanks, everybody.
Keep it going for the locals, everybody. Make some noise, make some noise.
I was still guessing about what colors we were going to be or any of the name, any of that stuff. Every conversation that we had had with Warren and the club up to that point, there was always an element in the room of, we'll support you, but don't you do what that team that shall not be named did. And so there was a very like, you need to be here and prove it, and no, we don't want to see any blue and gold, and no, we don't want to see any of that, and no, we don't want to go down to watch a game at Qualcomm, and that's not who this group is going to be.
We have listened to you from day one. This is not about us. We'll all be gone at some point. This is about San Diego, and San Diego will always be proud of this.
You know, when the reveal happens, I wish I could say I was totally on board, but I'm going to just be dead honest. Okay. They may have taken it to 10 already. And I was like, maybe I can get to like that idea, but I didn't really love it at first. And I guarantee I'm not the only one.
What do you think?
Just want to share one last thing. That is the word that we heard countless of times. Countless. So couldn't be more excited. Hopefully you like it. With that, I'd like to bring the supporters up if they can help me with one thing. The locals. Guys, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And they put up that beautiful logo they had, and my brain just went, that looks like a Tide box. What are we, huh?
And my first reaction was, Torrey Green is incredible. Like, what a perfect, the reasoning behind it, the color behind it, it's unique. And then we found out later that that's really hard to make merchandise with. So I think the colors were like, that's my favorite part of the whole branding. Like, they just did such a very good job of picking those colors to be unique, but also representative of San Diego.
This is your club.
And then also, people were so interested in what we were doing right away. They saw flags, they heard chanting and screaming and yelling, and they're like, hey, this is actually happening. Like, there's people behind this, and their support.
We wanted people to understand that, like, if you're in this group, we're all this big family, and we got to do these things beforehand. It's not just a privilege. This is part of what it means to be part of the supporters group.
I know we got a lot of like publicity out of that as well. We got a lot of followers and people interested, and from there we grow even more.
Yeah, man, that was a really fun day for us. For those of us that have been putting so much time and effort into this thing, I think it was finally like, all right, we can officially say we have a club. It didn't feel like we had a club until all of a sudden you have a crest that's gonna go over your chest, like this is finally, we have something that represents us. And it was great because the people that were there, I think you got a sense of, the community that was gonna be around you for the rest of this journey. And I think that it made everything real at that point.
Okay, so here we are almost a year later now after Steve and I started meeting with the club. And We are in front of O'Brien's, which coincidentally was one of the places that we met with Warren and Ricardo and a couple other people at one point. And this is kind of the first shot across the bow to really identify people that are interested in assuming roles that are defined inside of our bylaws.
Is this most of the core group, or are there people missing?
We don't know yet.
Right now there's just 4 of us, so we're doing a lot of work. We're all at 100 miles an hour, and we just need help. I mean, we need people in communications to do Facebook and Twitter and start reaching people. We need people in operations for events, philanthropy, like, you know, community service, that kind of stuff. So we need help, so that's why we're here.
We want to fill all these roles as quickly as possible, but it's really important for us as a group to locate the right people that belong inside of these roles and can really be successful. The more successful each one of these individuals are inside of their role, the more successful the group is going to be as a whole.
When it comes to supporters just in general, the people that watch and enjoy soccer want to watch and enjoy the soccer. And in leadership, if you're a leader within a supporter group, you lose a little bit of that. You kind of give up some of the watching of the game, and you give up a few things that as a just regular fan can do, because you're a leader, so you need to be looking out for the rest of the group.
So we are really kicking into high gear here, and we know we kind of have a limited amount of time because a lot of people are unavailable for the holidays, and we are really leaning up against that time of the year right now. So yeah, it's a lot of work coming right now.
Tom stepped up into a leadership role where Tom wasn't expected to step up into a leadership role. He had told me time and time again that no, he wasn't gonna, he would gladly, be there week in, week out, but he didn't think that he was gonna, invest the way he did. And then one day he showed up and he said, I'm in.
So it's a collusion of circumstance. First of all, I'm in one of my happiest places on earth, in my seat on the patio at O'Brien's. So that kind of helps. Properly lubricated by my favorite choice IPA in the world, the Pliny's, and I wasn't even going to stay for that meeting. I was there for the game, and Steve kind of talked me into sticking around. I remember, and I was like, I'll have another beer as I watch how this goes, and I can't wait to see who steps into these jobs. And we sat there and we did the introduction thing again. Everybody kind of talked around a little bit, and as that was happening, Steve had a copy of the bylaws in his hands, and he was kind of like, "Do you want to see this?" And I was like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm just listening to people." And like, it went on and on, it felt like, and nobody was really kind of stepping up and saying things. And I was like kind of giving Steve a hard time about, why don't you just say you're going to be the president already? Because he wasn't at that point. He was, no, I'm going to be too busy. I don't know. We'll see, blah, blah, blah. And so as the other end of the table was talking, he kind of handed me the bylaws and pointed to something on the back page. And Steve was like, tap, 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 look at that. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then I kind of went to the floor and I looked at all the other jobs, and I was like, yeah, these are not things I want to be putting too much of my time and effort into. But philanthropy, I'm like, I hate to even admit to myself, but I have a background in that.
Because we need to fill these roles, because I think there's a lot of people here that are just like, I'm interested, I want to help, but we got to figure out, what are you good at? How can you help? What are you willing to do?
And then one Pliny later, it became, all right, somebody's going to have to break the seal here. I will volunteer myself to do this role of philanthropy, to get the ball rolling. So I just volunteered myself, and before I could really even catch my breath about saying I would do it, it was second, it was done, we're going, and then the floodgates kind of start to open, and things really start to kind of go, oh, shit, now I'm involved. There's no like casual fanness of this.
Everybody was throwing around some good ideas, and someone bounced the idea of Bum the Dog, and I'm like, get on my phone, and what the hell's Bum the Dog? And was reading the story as they were talking, and was just like, oh my God, I want to be a part of this. I want to create. So I told them, I am totally all in on, anything I can do. Art director heard the different positions, and director of Tifosi was the one that really hit me. And it's like, I've always wanted to make something that big.
In the beginning, there was a few people that definitely were interested that said, hey, I want to be a part of this, and I want to help, and let me do this. This is what I'm good at. And they immediately offered, themselves to help.
And it was really good to see people show up and say, I really want to be involved. I want to help you guys build this. I want to grow this from where it is now to where it needs to be and where it's going to become.
And I knew from my past experiences that leadership sometimes was something that you, as a leader, had to I don't want to say push, but recommend to those that you saw fit?
I guess I got roped into being director of merchandise by my friends Steve and Drew, who I met through American Outlaws and just supporting U.S. soccer and just being a part of the San Diego soccer community. So I have a background in merchandising from my previous life where I worked in music. I toured with some bands and handled the merchandise business for a few different artists. And I thought maybe I could lend some help, some expertise to the group, and yeah, it turned into a director of merchandise role.
And then we started having more personalized conversations with people and saying, hey Jason, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Victor, what do you think about events?
Luckily, it wasn't very difficult. The people that were, meant for these positions, I think are in these positions right now. It's really cool to see how the kind of, I want to say the mixture of personalities and then how they all fit so well into their specific spots, like the director of merch, like the director of philanthropy, and so on and so forth. Each one of the leaders that is in place right now, I think found a spot, even if they didn't know it when this whole thing started, I think that they found a spot where they could really use their strengths and contribute to this group and the growth of the group.
And then on the 23rd, we'll finally make things official and we'll sign the bylaws and we'll ratify them as a supporters group. So once you ratify bylaws, that really becomes, that's when people are officially in leadership, and that's when you file those with the Secretary of State and you start the nonprofit process, and it gets complicated, but at the same time it's exciting. So we're getting there.
We met at Border X in Barrio Logan, and that was kind of the day that confirmed things from there.
Well, I remember it was a beautiful day, actually. It was just a warm day, nice day, but not too hot.
It started kind of a nervous day. We were having breakfast tacos across the street. I remember being like, "This is a big deal we're doing here. It's officially, it's happening now."
We were in the back of the brewery, and people just started showing up, and even some newer faces.
For some of those people, that was the first time I'd met them. For some of those people, they walked into the room, and I was like, "Oh, hey, hi, what? Don't know what you're doing here, but I know why you're here. That'll be interesting to find out." So we get to kind of sit down and have a conversation with people about what they're going to offer, what their strengths are, their ideas.
But it was also interesting to get to know each other even further, right? There's like a interpersonal dynamic relationships that we were forming, right? The locals, in general, we were trying to start build a family, but I think most importantly of all is you have to have this like internal core that's a family themselves.
So I brought the stack of pages with the bylaws, and we kind of just read through it. We all cheers to each other and said, "Hey, this is happening."
So as we've been kind of talking about the different positions, I think you guys there's no surprises here as to who's going to do what. So we're just kind of make it official today, and then enjoy it and celebrate it. Celebrate the fact that we actually have directors now, okay? And I am super happy to say that our president for the locals for the upcoming Foreseen Future is going to be Mr. Steve Barger.
Yeah!
And even the day before, that meeting, I was still, really having a hard time, saying, look, I think I want to take on president, because I knew I was going to have a kid. Am I going to be there week in, week out? Am I going to be able to do away travel? Am I going to be able to be at every meeting and all this stuff? And kind of my wife and I talked a lot about it, and she was like, you clearly want this, and you're not going to be happy unless you don't. Do it. Just do it, and don't have regrets.
The secretary, because that's how it says right there. I'm going to call him secretary. The vice president, the vice chairperson is, of course, Mr. Drew Stagg. Same honor.
From there, we went president and then vice president with Drew, then Jerry's communications, and everybody that was there, we just went through the list and said, this is why I think you're perfect.
We'd kind of gone through all the roles and all the nominees, and when they got to marketing director, it was like last or second to last, and I think Steve said, "Hey Travis, we'd like to have your sister be the marketing director. And I was stoked. I'm just like, would love the opportunity to spend more time with her. So unfortunately, she couldn't be there. She was meeting with some friends from Denmark, and or she might have been in Denmark. She was in Denmark, yeah, meeting with some friends from Denmark, and got her on FaceTime.
Hi, so we're doing our meeting right now to confirm leadership, and we want you to be our director of marketing. It's very important that you say yes. Otherwise, everybody here is going to be very sad.
And you're paying our tab.
That was a pretty cool moment.
And then the very formal, everybody signing on the dotted line and taking, official accountability at this point. That was a big day.
I think there's something about putting ink to paper that makes it official.
Kind of the foundation, right? That was like another stepping stone in the analogy I used before.
It just was the kickoff. Officially, we are a supporters group today. And I think it gave everybody that sense of, okay, we're starting now.
I couldn't even touch on how lucky we are for the group that actually stepped up. Nobody can do this kind of stuff alone. You need a really, really good core leadership team that really cares. And I feel like we got that. Before that, we had been in talks with the club, it seemed like weekly. And then we talked about, well, how do we go about formalizing memberships and for season tickets and season ticket supporters, and then how do we formalize drums and flags and the kind of special things that supporters groups get. And so the club came up with this idea called a recognized supporters group.
So the requirements that they had, no joke, were actually higher than a lot of MLS teams. Because they were holding themselves to a high standard.
Part of that minimum criteria is 100 season ticket members. It's a presentation to the club on who you are, what you're all about, how you're going to handle and uphold the club's values and the club's, their code of conduct and their, behavior in the stands. And we went to the club, and we put together a fairly comprehensive presentation.
That was a fun one because we hadn't really hung out with Landon and Carrie and, everybody in the front office at that point that was really involved in the background of building what this team was going to be.
What do you guys want to know? I think I know what you want to know. You want to know players, but what do you guys want to know? Don't be shy. I might not be able to say everything, but
we want to know everything that you can tell us.
See Carrie and Landon and everybody and all right, pulling up to these very temporary tables that was their office at that point and being like, all right. And I remember sitting there looking across the board and seeing on the far whiteboard in the back corner of the room. So we're all in the room facing this way, and on the back corner, they had on a whiteboard Stone and Rady's and Chosen. And it was like, looking back, those are our investors. But at the time I was thinking, oh God, I hope that's who they're talking to, because that represents what we're about to say we represent.
This collective voice will not only be used in the stadium, but also in the greater community to identify and address people in need. Together, we are a powerful collective that will vigorously aim to impact the community in positive ways.
Me and Drew, as the president and vice president, we always kind of knew going into that meeting that we would, we just need to step up. That's kind of our jobs, right? That's who we are.
Drew was a huge part of that presentation. Drew did such a fantastic job with not just the PowerPoint, but the explanation of everything.
Our members are SC Oil is the earth, the members are our water, and then the philanthropies are sunlight. That's really what allows us to grow and allows us to breathe in a way. I thought you were going to go with fertilizer and... Yeah. You can call it that, whatever.
It's hard to not put more of myself into it, to be honest. I could have made it more me, and that was I could have made it the Drew show, but it was very hard not to. So in some ways, I take that role naturally. It's something I do for my job a lot, and so it's just very comfortable with. But it was fun to be able to jazz it up in certain ways they probably weren't expecting with video clips and things like that. But the idea to formally present itself, it was great because it gives us, and hopefully every other supporters group has to go through it at some point, because I don't think that it seems kind of anti, in some ways, the idea of an organic supporters group, and that you have to clear this bar and interact with the actual club. They made us quantify what we actually are, instead of having to say, hey, we are this, we are that, and we can say that to each other all we want. Standing up and saying in a presentation, you create ownership, and you also create the definition of trying to define what you do as opposed to just saying what you do.
Absolutely, and 100% positive. There's going to be no negativity whatsoever coming from any of our social media accounts. That can come from our personal accounts if we so choose to. But as far as the representation of the locals, it's going to be completely positive. There's going to be no negativity whatsoever towards the club, towards anything that happened during the game or anything like that. We're going to keep it completely about ourselves and about being positive, which I think is going to be a really, really important part of making sure that people understand what we're about.
A lot of conversations lead up to it. It's not as scary of a moment as it sounds, or high stakes. It's not Shark Tank, kind of like you pitch in the room and it goes out. Everybody knew that we had met the requirements and we had certified it at that point. It's more of the chance to, again, explain and define what we were as a group that I really enjoyed.
We're going to have fun with this. That's the whole point. So.
But, I think there's a commonality with values. And I think that is, we're both independent groups, but these common values, like ours, if you've seen like our Know Your Crest, like our 4 primary values, which is independent, authentic, inclusive, and optimistic, which like, hear you guys say, it's exactly what you guys are saying. So I think that's where there's commonality, where we come together and celebrate these things.
Our North Stars are right next door to each other, if not the same star, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important.
We're having a good conversation, and that's what it was about. It was about getting to know the front office and then building a relationship with them in such a way that we were going to help each other build.
I think the biggest thing that I wanted to come out of today is making sure that you guys are connecting with our side too, so that faces and understanding who everybody is. At the same time, how can we help you grow? You guys are a huge voice for us, and anything that we can do in every single department is how can we help you guys grow your group, your family. You guys are independent, but I don't think as you guys independent, sorry, but I don't. It's like part of us. So please, like we said from the beginning of when we started this, we're here to listen. So don't stop that part of it just because we've launched a name and things like that, right? It's keep telling us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong in merchandise, in on Twitter, on everything that we're doing. Let us know. We have direct communication. We're going to make mistakes, absolutely. But something that I've learned is make mistakes faster, especially when we're trying to do this. So let us know what we're doing wrong.
That day we got to kind of go through our bylaws and show them that we were for real, show them that we had leadership in place, what we planned on doing, how we were organized, how we were going to grow, how we planned on making our numbers more and more each year, and why we needed to be recognized so that they could help us grow these numbers so that we could help them. It's a mutual relationship.
That night we didn't get a formal approval because Warren wasn't there. I think Warren wanted to see our presentation and look through things. But then a couple weeks later we got the call and we were formally approved. And that was again another stepping stone on the way up the hill. So
that was a good day. That one felt like we were a thing to be reckoned with at that point.